Hi guys, welcome to my Battlefield Defense video. So what we're looking at here is some overviews of the most basic principles of defending. Now I haven't come up with any long script for this, so I am just working it as I go along, so let's just try and have a look at a few things. So the first and most important thing we need to think about is marking targets. Marking your targets in Battlefield is very key because it allows you to see the movements of the enemy, and it communicates to other team members who are not in your squad and obviously can't hear you where those people are. So marking the targets, the first thing that you should be thinking to do. Once you've marked the targets, we'll be able to see where our attacking team are coming from, and here we see them on the map. We've got two guys at the top, the north. We have the main body of people, that's 5 guys coming through the middle area, and we've got one guy stealthing around the south area there. So once we know where our enemy are coming from, or once we're in a game and we can see where they're moving and trying to penetrate the defence, this allows us to lay out our team, and more importantly to communicate with your team where you are going to be and where the enemy are moving. This is very, very important because you don't want to end up in a situation where you have 6 or 7 or 8, half your team or more, all in one area focusing fire down on people. Now it may be good for people to rack up kills, but as a defensive tactic, it's a disaster because you end up with everyone in one place, which leaves a whole section of your area open to attack. So let's look at a bad defending team. Now on the face of it, these guys are fairly well distributed. They're covering the main body of the map here, and they've even got one guy covering the back area. So you think, yeah, that's pretty good. But when you bring this into contention with the other rules, which the most important one as well next is Golden Circle. Now the Golden Circle is something I've been talking about a lot recently. It's basically an area you need to be in order to return to your target to defend it. Okay. Now I'll bring these up on the map. 1 and 2. What these circles represent is the distance from the MCOM stations, the time it will take you to defuse. So if you are in those circles, it means that you can run back once it's been planted and armed and defuse it. If you are outside of that circle, what it means is that by the time you have got to the target, it will have already blown up. Okay, so if you're on the very edge outside, you would run to the target, begin to defuse it, but by the time you were defusing, it would blow up. Okay, so it basically means you are out of time. If you're inside, it means that you can run and defuse even if it was on the last second and still get it. Now obviously in a game this is quite difficult to estimate, but most people that play the game will have a rough idea about this distance, and the more you play, the more you will know this distance. Okay, as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to be running any longer than sort of, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 seconds. You want to be a kind of close range, and if you watch some of my other videos, you'll see the kind of distances that I stay from the target area. Now this brings us to our next point, which is discipline. It's important to be disciplined and not get pulled away, and this is, we can now look at the map, what has happened to our team. This bad defending team, you can see marked by the green dots obviously, they've moved away from their targets. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys out of those circle areas. Now you would think, okay, that's not too bad, we've got 1 guy at the back here and 2 in the first one. Well, the guy at the very bottom, the red dot there, he's already passed by all of the other team. He only has to beat that 1 guy at the back in order to take that station, and plus we're assuming that that guy at the back doesn't move forward, he doesn't get killed, and he actually bothers to run and disarm, because in many games people don't even bother to disarm. It will be armed up and they'll think, well, somebody else is going to get it. Again, that brings us back to communicating with your team. You need to communicate when things are armed up, or if enemy are moving around, you need to tell people what is happening so that they can also assist you to defend and disarm these things. Okay, so let's look at a good defensive team compared to these bad ones. Okay, here on the good defending team, you can see they've got a very different layout. We've got multiple people within the first circle and only 1 in the back. Now that's not such a bad thing because the ones at the front have got a very different spread. Okay, they can cover much more easily the lower area and the front, so the guy behind has less to worry about because there are more people between him. Okay, so he can kind of still move around that area and defend the forward line. So let's lay on the fire cones for all of these teams. So what we can see is the fire that they would be able to lay down on the enemy, and you can see here they've got a very nice arc that covers the whole area there. That's because they've got a good spread, okay, and they're looking at the correct directions. Alright, so there is no gaps in the line and they're covered. Now obviously you can have a problem where if people get taken down, there's going to be gaps in the line and people can obviously, you know, infiltrate through. But most of our cones overlap, which means that even if a couple of people get taken out, most of the other players are going to still have some, you know, direction to look on for those things. If we compare that to the bad team, right, the bad team, we can see that they have a huge amount of focused fire in the front line because that's where most of the people are coming through. But we see the guy down there in the bottom in the south, he's already slipped by that whole area, so he doesn't even have to worry about that. All he's got to worry about is the one guy at the back. The two team at the top, there's two of them, and all they have to beat is one guy, and again, they're straight into the base. Not only that, they can come and cut in behind the rest of the team there, probably take out some of them on the way, and before you know it, that whole team will be weakened and overrun. And that's all because they've been pushing forward, not thinking about their position, and not looking at where other team members are. They've focused far too much on the main area, the main body where the enemy are attacking from. So this brings us to something else. Appropriate class. When you're fighting a game, you obviously have to prioritize, which I'll bring up as well because it ties in, prioritizing your target. You need to look at how the team are playing. Do they have a lot of stealthing, people running around behind trying to get behind you? Are they very, very hard with tanks and vehicles? You need to prioritize what you're going to do. We bring up the next two things as well, focusing fire, watching for ninjas. Okay, all of these things important. If you're facing a lot of tanks, you're going to want to get engineer classes and focus fire on them with rockets. Okay, you don't want to be firing. You don't want to be the only engineer who's firing like one rocket here and there. You're going to have a hard time taking that down, and it's, you know, they're going to be laying a lot of fire, pushing very, very hard onto your team. Again, it brings us back to number 2. Communicating. You need to tell your team what they need to be doing. You need to be saying, guys, we have a tank problem, we need to take it down. And then you need your guys to be able to change out into engineers to take that down. Which brings us on to 9, flexibility. You as a team need to be willing to change class, okay? There have been many, many games where people will sit as an engineer, or they will just constantly rush as assault, or they will sit back as a medic racking up healing points. You need to be willing to change class. Thinking I'm a sniper is a terrible way to play the game. You need to be flexible. You need to be willing to change for any situation. You know, playing only as one class, it might not even suit a game. You might do very badly just because of your inflexibility. You know, you might not. If all the enemy are playing long range, it's going to be no good you being close range. If you're playing long range and they're rushing constantly, again, you're going to have a hard time. You need to be able to play as a team. So I'll just bring up the last point: teamwork. Everyone needs to work together. And let's just go back, look at our good team. Everybody needs to work together in this way. They need to cover their own points. You don't want to have to be worrying, hang on, has, you know, my teammates left a huge gap in the map? I need to be worrying about that as well as worrying about my own area. If everyone is doing their own job, then the team should work perfectly. But when people start getting distracted, they start going off on their own little missions, okay, that's when you have a problem. But this in itself, it isn't even a problem if people want to run out of the circles and go and attack. Maybe there's some, you know, someone causing a problem that they actually need to go out, but communicate it. Going back to 2, communicate with your team. Tell them that you're going to do this. Tell them that you're going to go. And then it means that they can compensate and cover the area that you perhaps had as well. All of these things together will help you defend. Marking your targets. Communicate with your team. Communicate everything you do, everything you see, everything you think needs to happen, and everything that isn't happening. Something that people don't do is communicate when an area is quiet. If you're covering an area and you're being disciplined and you're staying there, you need to tell your team, okay, station A is clear, or I'm in the construction building, it's clear, I'm looking at the beach, it's clear. Telling your team that nothing is going on is just as important as telling them where people are coming from. Because when you give them that information, it means that they don't have to worry about that area. It means that they can focus their attention on the areas where the enemy must be coming from. So all of those things together, marking targets, communication, circle, discipline, all ties in. Appropriate classes, as we've spoken about. You know, if you're taking constant sniper fire and all this sort of thing, it might be worth changing out to a couple of snipers, but only for a bit. You've got to be willing to change back again, and you know, once you've taken out that threat, perhaps they will then change their tactics as well, so you need to. It's all of these things tied in together, and we need to think about it. So I think this has covered pretty much everything that I wanted to speak about today. It's just been a general overview of all the elements together. I hope it's been making some sense and not too much inconsistent rambling by me. But we'll just leave that map there and people can sort of see the general layout, think about it, and I'll do some more specific videos with some actual gameplay as well when I can pull that out. I haven't been wanting to make too many videos recently because obviously Battlefield 3 coming up. But I hope this has been a bit of a help, and you know, leave some comments, let me know how you get on in game. Any questions, you know, let me know. Also, just to say, remember, whenever I talk about these things, nothing is set in stone. It's not a you must always do this 100% of the time. Okay, there's going to be fluid situations in any game, and you need to play it as you see fit. You need to make your own choices when you play the game, but just keep in the back of your mind as a basic set of rules the things that are important, the things that will help your team, and the things that make everyone work well together as a team. Okay, right, thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope it's been some use. Cheers.